I'm Roberto Serrini. I'm a Los Angeles-based director of films and commercials, and my film, The Rider, was selected in this year's TMFF, the Toronto Motorcycle Film Festival, and I've done quite a few motorcycle films that have played around the world, and can't wait to share some experiences about that.
Welcome to the Real Riders Podcast. My name's Simon Josie, and if this is your first time here, welcome and thanks for listening. So, as you heard at the top of the episode, my guest today is one Roberto Serrini, who I had the pleasure of interviewing in late November. That explains why, as you'll hear in the interview, I referred to a mini heat wave that we were experiencing in Germany at that time, 18 degrees Celsius. In contrast, as I record this, it's about 0 degrees, and there's still evidence lying around of the snow that fell over a week ago. For Bonn, which is where I live, that's not typical, at least during the 4+ years that I've been here. Being a committed fair weather rider, who doesn't like the rain but will ride down to about 5 degrees Celsius, I haven't been out on two wheels for a number of weeks now. But hey, the days are getting longer. In the interview that you're about to hear, I basically throw some questions at Roberto about motorcycling and filmmaking, and specifically his film, The Rider. And, well, he just goes for it with great stories and interesting insights about these two activities that we love. I guess I'd advise you to buckle up and prepare to be entertained and informed by Roberto. I've included a number of links in the show notes, most importantly, the YouTube link for The Rider, but also links to some of Roberto's other work, which he mentions during our chat. Special note here, I have blown the 1 hour target duration for this episode again, and I guess I want to make a special apology to one particular loyal listener, Mel from Wales, who can be found on both YouTube and Instagram by searching for Mal versus Machine. That's M-A-L. This one, again, is going to be a little bit longer than your commute, Mal. Sorry about that, but what can I say? I guess I'll try harder next time. So if you didn't already know, Real Riders has an account on Instagram where you will find, amongst other things, trailers for each episode. And if you want to know what I've been watching recently, follow the Real Riders account on Blue Sky. Links for both the Instagram and Blue Sky accounts are in the show notes. Finally, if you have the time and inclination, please consider rating or liking the Real Riders podcast in your favorite podcast app or on YouTube. This will help other listeners find the podcast. Righto then, let's get to my talk with Roberto. Welcome to the podcast, Roberto. Thanks for joining me on the show today. How's it going?
It's going really well. I mean, it's a little cloudy here in Los Angeles. Not the greatest riding day, but not bad. No rain.
No rain, yes. Yeah. Well, I can't complain. It's been 18 degrees here for the last couple of days, which is just crazy because it was snowing earlier in the week.
Amazing. Global warming. It's a blessing and a curse.
Exactly. Look, my audience knows that I've got a pretty poor small talk game, so I'm going to jump straight in and ask you, why is there such a happy marriage between film and motorcycles?
That's such a great question. And not to plug my own films, but I think the latest thing I did, The Rider, actually, spearheads that, because as a filmmaker and as a writer, I've always wondered, why are these the two things that keep surfacing to the top in my life? And it's a great question. It's multifaceted, and I'm sure for everyone it's different. But for me, I think that if you ride a motorcycle, you're doing something that you don't have to. Like, this might seem a little odd. I think motorcycles suck. Like, they're the absolute worst mode of transportation that possibly was ever invented. I mean, you're the windshield, they're extremely dangerous, they require constant upkeep, they'll kill you, and there are definitely better ways to get around, but we still get on these things. And it's not just one type of person, it's a lot of different types of people. There's a lot of different cultures in the motorcycle world. So what is it? What's the common denominator between these things? And I think it's kind of the same thing that goes along with storytelling, you know? And if you're a filmmaker or a writer or an actor or anything that enjoys storytelling or, you know, bringing that language to the world and adding a conversation, I think motorcycling and motorcyclists, you know, have that same passion. They want the story. They're doing it for the experience because it's different than getting in a car. It's different than getting in a plane. It's different than walking down the street. Like there's a ritual that is behind it. And every time you push those two wheels down the street, you're creating a story. And I don't think there's a lot of modes of transportation that offer you that same experience. So on one side, as a filmmaker, you're creating it with a pen and a paper, or maybe with a camera, and then the other, you're saddling up, you're turning the key, and you're twisting the throttle. But like, it's still some form of story creation that's happening. That's my best bet.
You mentioned the word saddle, and I was sort of thinking about this earlier today, and I was wondering, you know, are we the luckiest people in the world or in history because we've had this, you know, our lives have coincided with the existence of motorcycles? But then I was wondering, is this how people felt about horses back in the day? Is there some sort of parallel with horse riding and motorcycling?
No. Next question. And I only say that because there's not a lot of things I don't like in the world. I'm one of those people that have traveled enough and love traveling that genetically I've been tested. I hate cilantro. I will eat cilantro and love it. I do not like horse riding. And I do not like it for a myriad of reasons that I can define and defend scientifically. But like, there's nothing about getting on an animal and making the animal move that seems at all natural or enjoyable to me. I'll also say the same thing for motorcycles. They're uncomfortable. They're loud. They're noisy. They're not great. You know, you ever ride in a Bentley or even an Escalade? It's like a bathtub. It's fantastic. So it's hard to ride a motorcycle. It's even harder to ride a horse. And I'm sure that there are people through antiquity that were like, yeah, horses. And I'm going to wear this vest and I'm going to go with my other horse buddies and we're going to go barbecue. I'm like, of course, like, I think that happens in every culture. But I don't necessarily know if there's a translation between an animal and getting on it and a fire-breathing, carbureted machine between your legs that's exploding 6,000 times a minute. I think they're very different, you know, and I think that's a good thing in a lot of ways. But again, I think the storytelling aspect is important because if you're a cowboy or a farmer or, you know, you're delivering a message like Paul Revere, I think there's a story element about getting on a horse that you can use to make it something that is more than the activity itself. And I think motorcycles or car racing or painting or anything can have that kind of vibe if it resonates with you. I think that's the common denominator. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm not going to pick a fight with you, but basically because I agree, horses. The brakes on horses, they're just not very responsive, I find myself.
Do they have brakes? I mean, really?
Yeah, and the steering as well is even more complicated.
Yes.
So where does your own interest and enthusiasm for motorcycle filmmaking stem from?
That's a good question that I grapple with daily because they didn't grow up synonymous. I mean, I loved photography first. I studied to be a classical photographer, went to Brooks. And I was at the very unique moment in time when analog went to digital. I don't look that old, but I guess I am. But I'm so happy I was because it's such an interesting, brackish mix of technology and old school organic chemistry. And I realized like, photography's dead. You know, this is before cell phones, like smartphones. Like no one had a camera in their pockets. Those rolling around with a Canon A1 and shooting on celluloid. But like I realized like, digital's happening. Like this is happening and everything's going to change because of it. And it has. And the ripple of that, we feel to this day. But, in the beginning, I got into filmmaking because I didn't want a day job, even as a doctor or a lawyer or something, amazing and professional. I didn't want it to be the same thing every day. And filmmaking was one of those things where I was like, it's all of the arts, all of the things in one industry. If you want to be a photographer, there's cinematography, there's writing, there's acting, there's costume design, set building. I mean, you could be the insurance guy, you could be the producer and deal with the schedule, like whatever. There's no end to the things you can do, and no day is going to be the same as the next. And that's very true, and I was fortunate enough to, I guess, to realize that early on. Also, it's led to a chaotic lifestyle, so maybe it's not the greatest thing to ask for, but that's the reason I got into filmmaking. The motorcycles, I had a Vespa as a kid. I maybe was the only kid in Southern California with a P200, but I love that little Vespa. It was the coolest little thing. Taking it apart, put it back together. I ran from the cops with it, got away. So that's something to be said about the Vespa. But it wasn't about bikes, for me originally. The first bike I bought was in Harlem for $800 cash off this guy, and I knew nothing about motorcycles. And it was a BMW R65, and the seat was a bunch of leather jacket scraps that had been glued together. It looked like Mad Max. It had like thermal tape everywhere. I mean, it was the ugliest street bike you've ever seen. And I started it. I drove it up and down the street like I knew what I was doing. And I said, okay, $800, this seems right. So the next day it rained. I was living in the East Village, and I went to get on it the following day, and it started, but it really was choking and struggling to and I knew nothing. I knew one cylinder, P200, like basic bull. So I found this guy named Peter Boja, who ran this shop called Moto Borgotaro in Brooklyn and Red Hook. And sight unseen, drove down to him. At the time, I was married to a very voluptuous Colombian Chilean woman that I threw on the back of the bike. And we were going to have lunch. I was like, let me drive by this place and see if this guy could fix it. And I roll into the shop. And the way he tells the story is I came in and I'm like shouting and being, disgusting, flaunting myself. And that's not true. But I was like, I need you to fix my bike because it's broken. And he looked at me and the bike and he just goes, no, I don't want to work on it. I don't want to talk to you. And I never heard this before from a mechanic. I'm like, you're a mechanic. You fix bikes, fix the bike. And he's like, no. And we kept going back and forth. And I was like really confused about the situation. Two very Queens, New York people going at it. And finally, after really raising the temperature in the room, he goes, do you want to know what's wrong with your bike? And I go, yeah, that's all I'm asking. And he goes, okay. And he comes over. I swear to God, this is true. He takes his boot and he kicks the front pipes of the bike. And it goes right through because there's no pipe. It's just the thermal tape. And this guy was such a good mechanic. He's not even a mechanic. He's like a savant. He could hear what the problem was. And he just looked at me and goes, you don't have any pipes. And then he just goes and walks away into the back of his shop into the darkness. And I'm literally there with this woman behind me, going, what the fuck was that? What just happened? And I was like, this is my first foray into the motorcycle world. And I loved it. I really loved it. I was like, oh, this is the salty weirdness that doesn't happen in everyday society. So cut to many, many, many years later, Peter Boja is my best friend. And I've learned everything from this guy, not just about bikes, but about many different aspects of life. And it was all because of that one stupid moment, of pure ignorance, walking into that shop and thinking you're a mechanic, fix the bike. There's so much more to motorcycles, as there is to any culture, but bikes are very special. And what I learned starting that day was that no matter where you go in the world, and I've been many places because I work also as an editor of a travel magazine, if you ride a motorcycle and there are other people that ride motorcycles, they become your family. You can argue, you can talk shit about other people's bikes, but like at the end of the day, they'll let you in your house, they'll tell you things. And it's not like other hobbies that you can have. You know what I mean? Like if you collect stamps, I'm not sure if stamp people do that, but like riders, maybe it's because you're risking your life for something stupid that you don't need to do, but like they will definitely bring their world into your world. And it's very, very special. So my love of bikes isn't about riding. Like, yeah, riding's fun, but like it's also horrible. It's everything outside of it. It's all the culture that happens outside of it. It's all the different people that subscribe to it, that dedicate their life to it, that make it their identity. And then it's all the design and history and engineering that goes into these machines, which they haven't changed much in the 150 years they've been around, but like it's still amazing to me. And more than anything, it's about the global phenomena of riders always being, behind each other and being like, I got your back. You pass a guy on the street in any country, he's going to throw two fingers at the ground. And it's like, you tell me another thing where like there's a secret signal around the world that everyone knows. No, it doesn't happen. So how those two things relate, I don't think they do in the sense other than I'm just interested in truly profound culture. And filmmaking is a way to get into that, to tell stories for other people that I'm not aware of, that I'm not part of. And then motorcycling is that there is a profound amount of stories to be told that it's like a well that you continually draw from. And I'm constantly surprised at the amount of work that I've done in this one little field and how it just continues to evolve. You think it's just two wheels, but it's so much more than just two wheels.
How long after you'd started riding motorcycles that you became aware that, it's actually the culture that's hooking me here?
Well, Peter, if you know Peter, and some people do, unfortunately, he really was the thing. If I didn't meet him, I don't think I would ride a bike because he was so salty and shitty. And you see like cartoon characters like this, like they're just like, who the hell is this guy? He was just horrible. And he was so smart. It wasn't that he was wrong. He knew everything about, any bike in the golden age of motorcycling, especially European, to a point where you're like Rain Man. Like, I know we don't say the hard R anymore, but like, that's what it was. I was like, this guy's got some sort of like problem, like dropped as a baby problem. And then, he loved good food and he loved travel. And he was like, if he was a woman, I would have married him easily. It was like, oh, this is a complete human being that has dived fully into this culture, that has made himself. And he had this crazy backstory about, going down to New Orleans as a 18-year-old and living in the bayou with this guy named Chuck. And Chuck was a big fat guy with a cigar. And he would tell you about how this fly once landed on a Ducati and they did the final paint job. And they only made 400 of them, but this one had the fly embedded. And guess which one was the most expensive? What everyone wanted, it was that one weird one, and it was like there were metaphors and it was like Greek mythology, and like, yeah, I was enchanted. So I got to give it to Peter Boja, because if you can meet someone like that, and it doesn't have to be bikes, it could be anything, but if you can meet someone like that that has drowned in it and like exudes it, to me that's interesting, because I'm not looking necessarily for the person that dabbles. I want the pure spice, I want the full flavor human being. And for motorcycles, I've met a few of them, but Peter's definitely up there. So that's the person that got me into it. And I think if he was into anything else, I'd be into that, basically.
Well, this Peter Boja guy sounds fascinating. I mean, gee whiz, had you ever thought about making a documentary about him?
Funny you should say that. The first motorcycle film I made was about him. And it was called Moto Borgotaro. And I think you know that, and thank you for the alley-oop. But let's talk about Moto Borgotaro, because it's a really funny film. And if you're interested in filmmaking, or especially motorcycle filmmaking, or even riding, and like upping your game and, what can you do different? I asked Peter for years to make a short documentary about him. And it was because if you've ever rolled into his shop, his old shop, it was something out of a movie. It was brick lined and he had the patinaed walls with like old logos and he had the most exquisite, vintage bikes just in various states and, machines and all the parts and, it was kind of chiaroscuro lighting. It was like a Caravaggio painting. I mean, it really was sexy. It was something to behold. And immediately as a filmmaker, regardless if I like bikes or not, I was like, bro, let me bring a camera in here. Let me just do a little interview, take 5 minutes. And he was like, absolutely not. He's like, I would rather fucking die than be on camera for you or anyone else. And we were friends, and he was saying this. And I was like, every other week, I'm like, bro, come on, you just let me come in here. Just let me take 5 minutes. Years it went by like this. One day, I'd done some work for his neighbor, this guy he was a partner with at Union Garage, and he did apparel. So we were doing a bunch of stuff, and he was loving the work we were doing. It was fun and interesting. And so this guy, Chris Lesser, was always like, Peter, you should let him shoot something. I think it'd be good for the business. It'd be good for you. And Peter one day decided to build a bike, which was very unlike him because he was a purist. He wanted to restore bikes to what the engineers and designers thought was how it should be. But he wanted to build this bike, the bike to rule them all, like the Lord of the Rings. And I remember the day we're at a little bar in Red Hook, and he quietly goes, so I'm thinking about building this bike. And I go, say no more. Because I knew exactly you wanted, I was like, I got it. And he was, he felt shitty about asking because he said no so many times. So I'm like, tell me when we can come in. And he gave me a day. And I called 2 of my friends. We brought 5 cameras. They were 2 digital. We had a 16 millimeter, 35 millimeter camera. We had a VHS. I brought all the cameras. I brought everything. And Peter and I both hated most motorcycle films. They were always about grinder sparks and the slow boots through the thing. And they had that dark country music. And I'm not shitting on it. That's a vibe. I get it. But everything was like that. And it was kind of pedantic. And he's like, that's not what bikes are to me. They're machines. They're highly educated machines. They've been, designed to an inch of their life. They're beautiful, and there's got to be a different way to tell the story. So I promised him, I'm like, I'm not going to make a film that you've seen before, and that was the goal of making Moto Borgotaro. That's why I shot on 3 different formats. That's why the editing has been called Tarantino-esque by many people. It's because I watch films and I love making films, and I just took what cinema has done and applied it to the motorcycle genre. So that, to me, if you're going to make a film or you're going to start vlogging or do anything, do something different. And I know, because I've listened to people talk about how to succeed on YouTube, find a topic that everyone's talking about and then copy it and then use the key. Yeah, if you want a business, but then go work for an insurance agency. There's lots of ways to make money that people know how to do. Rinse and repeat. You want to make film, you want to make entertainment, you want to make content, do something different. Take a risk, because I guarantee you're going to get more out of it, financially and otherwise, if you take the real risk. And more than that, the society is going to benefit. The YouTube society is going to benefit because they're going to see new things. Everyone wins if you take the risk. So we took a risk. It wasn't really a risk. There was no money involved. There was no budget. And that film, I think, put me into this weird culture that I didn't even know existed, which was motorcycle films, And since that day, honest to God, that one film has gotten me more jobs with more brands than any other thing I've ever done. And I've done things with LeBron James and Nike. I've shot for Apple, you name it. Nothing. that stupid little film with Peter Boja in his garage in Red Hook has defined lots of things, including myself. And I love it. I love that that's the truth of it, because it validates the fact that, just really do what you love and do it differently. Like, be weird. Get out there and be weird and tell that story how it is to you. It doesn't have to, fit in every mold. And yeah, it's beautiful.
And I'll do the proper podcast host thing here and say, everyone, I'll be putting the link to the film in the show notes so you can watch it. How far into your filmmaking career were you when you made that film?
It's hard to say. I mean, I started making films in college. Were they real films? Did I get paid for them? No. I was working as an editor. That's how I got into directing. Directing is the gold standard, I guess, for filmmaking, right? But it's hard to get out of college, especially when you study film theory at UC Santa Barbara. No shame. To just jump into directing and get people to pay you to make things. So editing was something I hated in the beginning, but learned to love. And I was working as an editor at a place called Jump, cutting commercials. And on the side, I was doing a lot of documentary work because I could do it solo and everyone was willing to be on camera. Could be a restaurant, could be a shoemaker, could be a painter. It didn't matter. Everyone was willing to be in front of the camera. And I was in the thick of making short docs, basically, just to kind of get ahead and then using that work to get paid work. And I would say that, I might have had a few things, but it's not like now where I work on big campaigns, multi-million-dollar budgets. That wasn't the case. It was very much the beginning of, the career, the true career. Yeah.
Okay, within the motorcycle film genre, what other films have you made that we haven't talked about so far?
I mean, more commercials than I would know how to count, first of all. I mean, that's the bread and butter. Advertising definitely is the thing that pays the rent, and I love it. I mean, I think it's interesting when done correctly. But as far as narratives and scripted stuff, I've done a few pieces that relate to love and desire. A piece called Untitled Baggage. I've done some short horror pieces, and then literally hundreds of travel docs. I have a YouTube channel called Travel Class, and I'm the editor at large for a magazine called Get Lost. And I've been working with them for over a decade, going around the world, having, unique experiences. And it's not influencer stuff. It's much more journalistic in the sense that the experience I do for Get Lost are unique. It's not for everyone, and it's more about perspective than about vacations. I'll just say that. So a lot of my time as a filmmaker goes towards that, documenting those things. And it's been wonderful. I mean, documentaries, which I never was interested as a kid or never even thought of as a career, has given me basically the world. And now, after so many films, transitioning into storytelling, which is kind of why I got into it in the first place, is where I'm heading, working on scripted material, because it's easy to do now. I got the equipment, we have the people. Now's the time to strike, is how I feel.
With the travel docs, are they scripted to any extent, or are you just working off an outline, or are you just going out there capturing stuff and hoping to find the story afterwards in the edit suite?
Yeah, no, they're not scripted at all. And I feel really strongly about this, especially because I started traveling before cell phones, like smartphones or internet. So you get on a plane, you get to a place, and whatever you brought with you is all you had. And you had to talk to people and figure it out. And to me, that was a much more genuine experience. And you got a lot more perspective from the world that way. Instead of now, and I'm guilty of adding to this, obviously, but watching where to go, what to eat, what to order at a restaurant. Go have this, it's the best. This is the best carbonara in Rome. If you don't eat this, you didn't go to Rome. And then everyone goes to that one place and they do the one thing and they all say the same thing because they were told and they listened. And like, obviously, you've already had the experience before you left. So to me, that's the problem. That's how travel has evolved, and in a bad way. Whereas before, you'd go to a place and every single thing you discovered was amazing. It was the best carbonara you ever had because it was the only carbonara you've ever had. And there was no taking that away. It was the Christopher Columbus effect. Like, I discovered America. There were people there, obviously, but to you, it was new. And that feeling, to me, was addictive. And my parents worked for the airline, so we didn't have any money, but I could go to the airport, literally walk to the gate, write in a 3-letter code, and get on a plane to anywhere in the world for about $12. So that was the adventure. Going, surviving, and then coming back with no language skills, with no knowledge of anything. And now it's really hard to find that. And the perspective it gives you as a human being, which to me has enabled me to be happy basically in any situation. So the way I combat that is I don't do any research. And with the magazine, for instance, the last trip I took was to Antarctica, which was the last continent I've yet to visit. And I went with a great company called Quark. They have this amazing ship called the Ultramarine. It's 7 stories of pure class. There's a sauna in there with floor-to-ceiling windows where you can watch icebergs float by. 3 restaurants. I had lobster every night. It really was not like traveling. And it cost tens of thousands of dollars to go, which I don't pay because I'm a journalist and I know I'm very lucky. Great. But when I went, I didn't want to do just a story about how luxurious this beautiful trip was and how amazing Antarctica is, because it really is the frontier of the world. As I'm reading Shackleton's diary, sweating in the sauna, watching literally the icebergs that he stepped on go by, and how cold he was, and how he could never get warm, and how every day he had to eat pemmican hoosh in different ways, and how he dreamed of a saddle of lamb that I was literally about to eat, I realized that, this is an interesting contradiction. This is the dichotomy. You're having the same experience, you're seeing the same place, you're having the same adventure in some sense, the wonder and awe, but without any of the discomfort. I mean, these guys literally I don't know how they did it. I just watched that documentary, the series, and I was like, he's amazing. You really had to hate where you're from to go to this place. Like, how bad was home life, right? Yeah. For me, it's not so bad, but I had a beautiful ship to, have massages every day and all that, heated beds, whatever. The floors of the shower were heated. I don't even want to talk about it. But it was just so funny to me that these things were so different, and it's 100 years apart. And we're still in the same place, and we're still getting the same amount of wonder and awe and beauty. But we've literally, because of technology and science and culture, taken all the danger, the necessary danger out, So the last film I did was called Walking with Shackleton. It's on the circuit right now. It's won a ton of awards. I had Chris Sullivan, who's an actor, a phenomenal guy. He was in The Knick and Guardians of the Galaxy. He was Toby on This Is Us. He's got a hell of a voice. And I had him do the narration. He's reading Shackleton's words over the images that I took there. And to me, it's the last thing I did, but to me, it's the greatest thing I've done so far, because it's salty, it's funny in a weird way, but it's also telling a story beyond what you're seeing on the screen. And that, to me, if you can find that in travel, that's the way to go. Don't research it. Go in naked, go in ignorant, and just let it wash over you. And then that's the kind of stuff you can expect, hopefully, perspective-wise. And you're like, wow, I see something different now. And I don't know if anyone else on that trip had that same experience, because they probably researched it and thought about the money they were spending and what they were going to eat every night. I walked into completely blind and naked because I wanted to hit me, like a newborn. I think that's really important with travel, and the greatest piece of advice I can give anyone.
So that sort of prompts a question in my mind, which is, have you ever lived for an extended period somewhere reasonably challenging in terms of different language or just different cultural practices, et cetera, et cetera? Because there's just sort of idea that I've been tossing around in my head for a couple of months, which is that there's travel, but then there's sort of the experience you have when you live somewhere for an extended period. And I don't think those two things are the same. And you get it is a different experience to do that.
Yeah. I mean, have you ever heard of Queens, New York? It's another world, man. 108 languages spoken, more than any other place on the planet. And maybe that's because I come from there that I have this weird obsession with, like you said, throwing yourself into these, new cultures, these new languages, and just living in there for a second. But yeah, between that, Los Angeles, I lived in Iceland for a bit, working for WOW Airlines. I've lived in Italy, collectively for years. I go back and forth. And then to your point, as I'm older now, in the beginning, you want to go on a trip, you want to see everything. You go to multiple cities, you're constantly moving and you're exhausted, and like no one ever looks at the pictures. And I think you forget a lot of the trip, I'll be honest with you. But now, as an older gentleman, in the prime of my older life, my thing is I like going to like little places and just sitting there for 2 weeks. I don't care how small the town is in the middle of like Laos or Italy or Russia, it doesn't matter. But just sitting there, and you sit at the cafe and it might take you 3 or 4 days, but you're going to strike up a conversation with that old guy, and that's going to change your life a little bit because he's going to tell you something. And you're not going to get that by going to Rome and seeing the Vatican, the Borghese Gardens, you know what I mean? Like running around the city, you're going to see all the things that everyone else has seen. You've probably already seen yourself in some manner or another. So it's much more important to me, and it's become harder with the way travel has increased and how the internet has shared so many stories, and I think that's great. But like in the older days, in the 90s and even in the 60s, if you went somewhere, you were going to get that experience regardless. People were going to talk to you. You didn't know what it was going to look like. You didn't know what it was going to sound or smell like. And it was going to affect you. And you're going to take that perspective shift and bring it home. And it's going to change the way you see your home. Everything is now different. You realize, oh, my slice of pizza is a bao bun somewhere else. It's not so different. In fact, it's not different at all. Different flavor, but exact same purpose. They're eating it the same way. They're having the same enjoyment. And then you start to realize, oh, we're so different, but we're not at all. And then you could start tapping in and go, I can then enjoy the bao bun as much as I enjoy slice from Stromboli on First Avenue. And then the world is your oyster. You have Prozac on tap. It's whatever you want. So I think what you're saying is very important. The going and living and finding those small moments, that teaches you that you can do that literally anywhere, even your home. And it's the key to happiness, literally, without question.
Okay. We know from the writer, the film that we've been talking a little bit about, and we're going to talk a bit more about, that you ride, and you've mentioned earlier that you got this R65 BMW. What are you riding these days? Are you riding something these days?
I ride the same R65. Are you recording the video? I would love that face to be the thumbnail for this. Yeah, man. And listen, my best friend is the world's greatest mechanic and has access to the world's greatest bikes. And he's constantly been like, dude, get on this 750 Super Sport. Like, get on this Mali, get on this whatever. And I'm like, no, I don't want to ride a board. I like this bike. I know this bike. She is my wife, and I ride the same bike. Now, I have 4 other ones in different parts of the world, but it's always the R65. And it's because, I don't know, I'm loyal to it. No, it's not that. It's easy. I get on it. I know it. Also, I hate to say this, BMWs are built like clocks. They just run. It takes minimal effort to make that damn thing run, especially when your best friend's a mechanic. But still, it's not like fuel injected. There's no computer control. It's mechanical. It's carbureted. And like, if you break down, you can fix it. And that's one of the things I think that a motorcycle does best at, and why they're so beautiful, is that it's not like a modern car. You don't need a computer or some chip or some shit to get into the engine. You got a wrench, I've seen Peter fix something with a piece of metal on the side of the road. And I was like, that's something. That's something to be said about freedom. If something goes wrong, you have the ingenuity and the brains to fix it, you can fix it. So the R65 to me has been my home. And not to say that I don't appreciate other bikes, but, we shipped 2 of them to Italy years ago for a big trip. And we did this great tour. It took about a month and a half. And when we got back to Milan, Peter looks at me and goes, why don't we just leave the bikes here? And I go, that's a great idea. So we left those 2 there. They're with a guy that has a beautiful little garage in Milan. And I fly in, I take a cab to the bike, and then I get on the bike and I drive. And that to me is like, oh, this is why motorcycles are cool. Because it doesn't cost anything for him to keep it. It's easy for me to get around. And, it's a beautiful thing. And I know that bike, like the back of my hand.
Yeah. When you do go to Italy, which direction do you head typically when you go riding?
There's a little town I won't mention because I don't want anyone else to go there. But I've been going since college, and I go back there all the time. And it's Tuscany. I don't have to get too specific, but it's the best food. And my family's Roman, so they would argue with me till I die. But Rome's beautiful. The food's good. It's a real city. But Tuscany for a bike, and this is the thing, man. With Italy, you're on that bike for 30 minutes, and then you're got a glass of wine in your hand, or a coffee, or like the most beautiful panino you've ever had. And then you're back on the bike for another 30 minutes. And then guess what? It's another glass of wine and a panino and a nice, maybe now it's a espresso, corretto with a little sambuca. You're up in your game. But it's every 30 minutes. In the States, it's 8 hours on a bike. Your ass is broken. You got bug in your teeth. You probably got some form of tuberculosis for some reason. It's horrible. It doesn't make any sense to me. In Europe, the motorcycle makes sense because you're loping around. That R65, even though it's bored out to 800 and I got all the electronic timing and all the good stuff, it's not going over 80. And you don't need to because you're there, you're loping around. If you drive too fast, you can't see the women. So what's the point is what I'm saying. That's where it makes sense. I'm not here to fly down, the alley of a freeway. I want to lope around. I want to see what's around me. I want to eat it. I want to taste it. That to me is the beauty of having a motorcycle.
Yeah. I think I've been to Tuscany a couple of times, not on a motorcycle, but I remember going the first time, which would have been, I think, 1999. And I thought, because I come from New Zealand originally, I thought, oh, this place could actually be better than New Zealand, which for a New Zealander at that time and of my age at that time was quite a big statement for me to make. But
New Zealand's beautiful, man. And the food's great. And the people, unfortunately, are fantastic. So,
yeah, I'm sorry about that.
No, it's great. But listen, Simon, if you ever want to go, and I mean this sincerely, and I've done this many times, take the bike. That's part of the beauty of having, a shitty BMW R65 is that go use it. It's not like if you drove it off a cliff, I would feel bad. I hope you're okay. But like the bike is a bike. Use it like a machine. It's another thing with motorcycles. I see these guys have these amazing machines, and Peter sometimes, we did a documentary about this green frame that Keith Hale owned. This bike is worth $300,000 just because of the rarity. But the beauty of this documentary and Keith Hale was he rode that damn thing every single day. And because he was such a good mechanic, because he cared so much, he kept it in pristine condition. It has millions of miles on it, and it's a sport bike. It's supposed to go a quarter mile at a time. But this is the proof that the engineering of those machines was so precise that if you took care of it, it would literally go forever. And there's no other machine like it on the planet. There are other green frames, they're sold for a lot of money, but that one is worth more. Not because no one ever rode it because it has low mileage, but the opposite, because it's been tested to an inch of its life. And that to me is the beautiful story about, motorcycles in general. It's like, yeah, they can be pretty and you can put them on a pedestal, but when you use them and you take care of them because they're machines, that's when the value happens. That's when you get something out of the bike. More than monetarily, it gives you something back. So go to Italy next time, and you go see my guy Enzo. He'll give you the keys. You take off. I don't even want to hear what you did because it's going to piss me off, and I'm going to want to go. So just go have a time, bring it back, fill the tank, and sayonara. That's it.
Yeah, well, everyone, you heard it. It's all recorded, so yeah, that's going to happen. For
Yeah,
sure
you could
now.
call me. If if I find the reason, you can borrow it too. It's no big deal.
Okay, let's jump to The Rider, this film that was shown at the TMFF Motorcycle Film Festival. I was doing a little bit of internet stalking and research, very superficial because, that's me. And I see that the film was produced by the co-founders of the former magazine Iron and Air, being Adam Fitzgerald and Gregory George Moore. Can you tell me how you got involved with the project and what was your relationship with those two during production? And sort of the context for this is that I'm always interested to sort of better understand the relationship between producers and directors, though I suspect there's quite a broad spectrum of that experience.
Yeah, this was a surprising one. This is a great story, for me at least, is that Iron Air is the greatest magazine that was ever produced for motorcycles. I mean, it's like the height. It's the Vogue, if you will. It went into the character, the culture, but like not in a pedestrian way. It was very high art and at the same way very accessible. And those guys are geniuses. I mean, they're beautiful photographers, storytellers, the whole 9 yards. Okay, so we both know each other, not personally, but of each other because we're in the same world. I get this email from them and they're like, hey, would you consider getting on a call with us? We have this project with BMW and we would like to talk to you. So we get on the Skype call. And the first thing these guys say is like, I can't believe we're talking to you, to me. And I'm like, why? Who am I? They go, you don't understand. Your film, Moto Borgotaro, the same stupid film. Let's start. It's like, we use that for every basic pitch that we do. Every job we've done, everything where we've hired someone, like, can you do this? Can you make it like this? Can you do it more like this? And, they've come close, but no one's ever really, and I was like, wow, I can't believe that. And what? And they're like, well, we were afraid to call you, like you wouldn't take our call. This is really funny to me because my job is to make things. You know what I mean? Like, I'm always willing to work with anyone. And out there in the world are two of my heroes that I would love to work with that are afraid to call me as I'm afraid to call them. And I'm just wondering, like, oh, are we all in junior high? Like at the dance? You want to dance? I don't. You want to? You look at me? Like, no. That's how it felt. And like, we're grown men and saying this. So we had a really good laugh, and that's how it kind of started. And it, again, more perspective. Like, now I realize, like, oh, the world isn't really what you think it is. And if you're doing something and you're not getting the results or people aren't calling you, it might not because your things suck. It's just because maybe they're good and no one wants to call you and feel like they're going to be rejected. I don't know, but the way that came about so naturally and organically, and then what they wanted to do, which was basically BMW contacted them and said, listen, you've done great work. We want to go find real BMW riders and just tell their stories. And credit to BMW, and again, I've been a fan for years just because of their bikes, but they didn't want to like brand it. They didn't want to like shove new bikes in your face or anything like that. They're like, just go tell stories. And that's what I'm all about, because that's what gets people excited and turned on. So Adam and Greg were like-minded. They're like, look, we got these people lined up. They're amazing riders. They all ride different types of BMWs, but they're also doing amazing things in their life. And I was like, all right. And that was it. There was no, you had to show new bikes. You had to show the branding. Like, maybe I had to flash the logo for 3 seconds because, we're being kind to BMW. But like, it was really about the riders. So we went out to these 3 different cities, Chris Mayat, Eva Saad, and Matias Correa, and it was New Hampshire, New York, and Tennessee. And, I did what I do, which is just document their lives. And these are really fascinating, interesting, beautiful people doing passionate things. And it's not they're not big, they're not super famous. And that's what I like, because it's harder. It's harder when you're not famous to keep doing the thing you love. And when you find that person, you let them talk, and they got a family they have to support, and they're really fucking pushing it. Like the fire is still burning. You gotta love that, you know. You gotta want to hold that and like hug it and like, please tell me more. So we just went out there to document that, and I think, again, it's one of my favorite pieces. It just shows humanity with motorcycles as kind of like this background beat. And it's not about BMW. It's not about the brand. They never say BMW ever, but like, it's just about bikes. And for them, it happens to be BMW, just like me. You know, I'm not partial to any other ones just because I know that one, and I'm not saying that it's the best, but for me, that's the choice, because that's my woman, you know, that's my person.
That's fascinating to me, because I was watching it again today, and I remember the time I first saw it in the theatre, and I was kind of surprised. Maybe I hadn't been paying enough attention at the beginning, but I was kind of surprised when the BMW logo came up at the end, because it was so not a exercise in corporate branding. And I thought, oh, you sneaky bastards, you've snuck this one by me. But I've enjoyed the last 30 minutes so much.
Yeah.
It had that really sort of indie feel to it. The passion of the characters came across. And as you say, the fact that they were riding BMWs, it was very subtle. You almost had to pay quite a lot of attention to actually notice that they were BMW bikes, and
right.
Whenever they were riding bikes. And what's more interesting then also for me is that you say right from the beginning BMW was completely on board with that approach. Because I wanted to ask, did you, the three of you, sort of have to push that to them and say, look, we've got this concept, it's maybe not what you were thinking. But the fact that BMW actually came to you with that idea is kind of refreshing and encouraging.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I mean, to your point, it's like, if you have to throw the brand and the logo in your face over and over again, I think you're failing as not just a storyteller, but as an advertiser. Like, you should want to pay attention. If you're doing something correctly on film, you're going to pay attention, and you're going to ask the question, what is that and how do I get it? It's that simple. It's not that hard. So, working in advertising, there's a huge spectrum, and like, obviously there's repetition and branding, but like, when you get someone that understands, no, motorcycle riders are different. They're doing it for a different reason. And if you can be honest and organic with something, it's always going to be better, because they're going to say, what is that? And I want that. Because that's all we're doing, is just sharing information. I believe in truth in advertising. I really do. Here's the thing. This is what it does. You want it? You can get it, like anything else. And props to, Greg and Adam, who formed this company called The Simple Machine that basically just deals with that, with automotive. They're the people that deal with BMW. They're the ones that we've worked together with Indian as well. We've done 2 projects now. I'm actually editing a new one I can't talk about, but like, it's going to be a mind blower. But they're the creative force behind that. And they get that. And I give it to the brands to see that in them and go, these guys know what they're talking about. They made this beautiful magazine that was more than a magazine. It was a cultural phenomenon. They defined it. They encapsulate it. It's an encyclopedia of information. So when you come to them, you're not getting a commercial. You're not getting some, plug and play influencer garbage. You're getting something that's like truly mainline, tapped in to the experience of that thing. Be it a brand, a writer, a culture, whatever it is. Like, it has nothing to necessarily do with the brand, but the brand's going to be associated with that feeling. And that, to me, is the highest level of art and commerce, coming together. So, yeah, BMW, they do a lot of advertising. But for this specifically, they were very open with like, do your thing, we trust you, go get it. And I'm glad, I'll tell you a little side, I don't think anyone knows this, and this is bizarre to me too. I was shooting something in Italy for a different brand. Not a motorcycle brand, a whole different campaign. And I had all the footage with me. And I had just changed my editing setup so that all my footage was with me at the same time. And I got robbed in Modena. And it made huge national headlines, which was amazing. And it was in a way that I've traveled all my life. I've never been robbed. I've never had anything stolen, never been nothing, mugged, nothing. Smart guy from Queens. This was a whole new experience. I was like, wow. And they took all the project with me. I had a backup of the footage, but like the project was gone. The cuts were gone. And I was like, oh, this is really bad. And that was that BMW job. And I remember the next day, Adam and Greg were like, they loved it. It was literally like the first cut. They're like, no changes. And I was like, great, because it's gone. Like I could remake it if I needed to. I could frame by frame remake it if I needed to. That wasn't the problem. But like, it was like a month of work. And thank God they were like, yes, this is right on. So double win, and almost appreciative of the guy that stole all my shit, because it was like, I don't know, it was like edging. It was like just a climax I've never had before of a job going well. It was like, yes, all three of those are good. Great. We sold. That's it. They've already been printed, highest quality. We're good. It's sold out the door. So that's something no one knows. And, I don't mind saying it. It's not the most professional thing, but also it's not really our fault. We got completely robbed in a town. It wasn't Naples, for God's sakes. I know I sound so affluent, but like, it was a hell of an experience. And I think they realized, BMW, like, oh, this is spot on. It gets the point. And I've watched it so many times since then. And like, I like watching it, which is weird, because usually I'm like, I can't watch this. I've lived with it too long. But I love all those people. And I love the way the stories unfold and the cinematography, and Adam and Greg's little parts in it too. Like, I love all the voices that come out of it. And it really is a special piece, even if you don't like motorcycles, which I think is the best part. It's really just about humanity. It's about a photographer, a painter, a designer, with life experience. And I think that's why so many people like it. It's up for Tribeca. It's been doing great in the film festivals. And I think, the bottom line is that BMW had their greatest year in sales ever in 2024. And I'm not saying it was our little films, but it also wasn't not.
Okay. Whatever you say, Roberto.
Well, look, I'm just reciting facts. These are scientific facts. Yeah.
Yeah. Just one question. I mean, you mentioned that, you had a painter, photographer, a designer. So was that just a coincidence that you took three creatives, for want of a better word, or was that a very deliberate choice?
I don't think it was. I mean, this was Adam and Greg that sourced the subjects. Matthias is the only person I knew personally in that, and it wasn't part of the process, but I think they have interesting lives. It's not that a banker or someone that's not quote unquote creative wouldn't have an interesting life and rides a BMW. I think you can be creative as a steel mill worker or a carpenter or anything. I mean, everything's creative to some degree. And like, I've done enough documentaries to like know that you can find creativity in anything. Anyone that's passionate about doing something. But that was the key, is that these three individuals have uniquely passionate lives that aren't easy. They're not funded. They're not children of somebody. They're not famous necessarily. So you're still getting the raw human experience, but you're getting it in a way that you can still connect to. I love hearing how actors and filmmakers and directors have gotten to where they're getting, but like, I always wonder, like, what was it like in the mid-level, what I mean, where they weren't famous, where you didn't know their name. And that to me is always so much more inspiring and beautiful. So I don't know why they chose them specifically, but I'm glad they did, because to me, they really do tell a full story with so many different facets for any kind of rider. They're so different. And
have you been tempted to get a hairdryer tattoo yourself to put on your neck?
No, the only machine I have is a Da Vinci helicopter that I got
Okay.
in Shanghai, of all friggin' places. But no motorcycle tattoos.
People, you have to watch the movie to understand what I'm talking about. Just one last question about the film. At the end of the film, you say that if you ride a motorcycle, you are constantly in pursuit of perfection. Now, I know the way that idea resonates with me in the context of motorcycling, but I'd like you to perhaps expand a little on what it meant to you when you said that, and other examples to illustrate what you meant.
Well, before that, let me ask, how does it resonate with you?
Well, for me, motorcycling is like an activity which I'm constantly practicing, whether it's improving my slow speed riding or perfecting each corner that I take, braking, accelerating. I mean, there's just so many things that you can constantly practice at.
Mm.
And I don't think I'll ever perfect all of those things, but I feel there's sort of like I'm traveling on a path of improvement. So I get satisfaction from being able to do things slightly better over time, all the time. And I'm not sad or frustrated that I'll never be able to do it perfectly, but I can sense the improvement and how I'm having fun at the same time. So that's what the perfection of riding is for me. But I realize there are maybe other aspects when we're talking about perfection in terms of design. I mean, you talked earlier about design and maybe perfecting design, creating a machine, building a machine.
Yeah, it's I don't think it's any different, to be honest with you. And it's funny. It doesn't matter if let's say you're a sushi master and you're trying to feed someone blowfish, which is poisonous, right? And like you got to know how to cut it right. Or if you're a motorcyclist and when you get on it, like you can die real easy. It's not really that far off from dying. So like you gotta constantly be thinking and learning. Or anything, any of these people, the designer, the photographer, the painter, to me it feels like they feel they're going to die if they don't do better. And I think that's kind of the basis of drive in general. If you want to admit it or not, the reason why we do things is partially because we get enjoyment, like a serotonin boost, a hedonism out of it, but it's also a deep fear of failure. And you got to do better or you're going to die. You're not going to survive. You're not going to make money. You're not going to progress. So I don't think it's any different than what you feel. And for me, every time I get on the bike, I question it because, like I've said, it's loud, it's dangerous, you're in the windshield. Did you check the tire pressure? Is that asshole turning left in front of you? Like, I know I'm a great driver in a car, better than most people because I'm watching every single vehicle and the ones I can't see, imagining, oh, this guy's going to come out of that street and turn right in front of me. He's not there, but I'm imagining it because I've been in accidents, because I've seen the videos. So you're constantly looking ahead and imagining a world that can kill you. And that might seem horrible, but there's a triumph in it when you can do it and still enjoy the process of it. So for me, the perfection of riding happened in Italy alone on a road where, I was tilted just the right way. The wind was blowing the right way. The sun was shining with enough radiation, the temperature of the wheels and the friction coefficient of the gravel, like all the turn of the earth, the solar, everything was, like a clock. And there was a moment where I could almost like let go and I was in this like slipstream. Everything was balanced. And I felt it like honest to God, like half a second, but it was like a little orgasm, like, and I was like, damn, that was it. And I realized that every time I get on the bike without knowing it, I'm always very close to that moment of like, everything is in line. And that's the feeling that keeps you going forward to risk the death, to risk all the bad things that can happen. And to me, that's a beautiful metaphor with anything. filmmaking, carpentry, house making, children rearing, whatever. It's like there's a death, like there's a disaster that's there. But there's a balance too that if you can master it, if you can better yourself constantly every time you're out there, every time you're doing something, you're going to get a little closer, and it's going to give you that moment of sublime perfection. So that I think is noble enough to risk your life for. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, Roberto, you've had experience not just submitting films to festivals, but actually being part of festival judging panels. And so I thought it would, for my listeners, I thought it'd be so interesting to hear someone who's sat on a judging panel, to hear maybe what are the typical or the common mistakes, or what you might identify as areas of improvement that you see most often in films that are submitted for festival consideration.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, number one is boring. Boring is different for everyone. So to ask me is different to ask someone else. But I would say that you're always better off, regardless of what background you come from or what you're looking for in a film, to not be boring, and boredom comes from replicating something that has been replicated too many times before. I'm not saying don't replicate, like copy as much as possible, but copy things that haven't been seen before. And for me, the success has always been, as a filmmaker and as a judge, is when you're mixing genres. So you're taking something that you haven't seen in one genre and putting in another. Regardless if you like it or not, it's going to keep you watching. I'm not looking for what I think is perfect, because I know that doesn't matter. I'm really looking for something that, this is going to be interesting to a lot of people. It's going to change a lot of different perspectives. And as a judge, I think that is the job, is not necessarily finding what you consider to be the highest form of this particular genre of art. It's really what's going to create the most conversation. And that is the incongruency of type of genre. You're mixing medias, you're mixing concepts, philosophies, you're changing the perspective of the viewer to see something in a different way. So I love that. There's a new movie out about Robbie Williams. I just saw Gladiator, which sucked, by the way. Don't go see it. But there was a trailer for this Robbie Williams documentary, and I'm not a big Robbie Williams fan. I'm not a Robbie Williams, but he's a monkey. He's a chimp in the film. He doesn't play himself. He's an animated chimp, and this is exactly what I'm talking about. They've taken a documentary. Okay, it's like whatever. It's a retelling of his life. But instead of putting like a young actor as Robbie Williams and Robbie Williams in the film, they made him a chimp. I don't care if you like Robbie Williams. I don't care if you like music or biopics. You're going to want to watch the trailer, and you're probably going to want to watch the film, because it's so friggin' like, what are they trying to say? Is he a monkey? Is he a chimpanzee? Is he in a cage? I don't know, because I didn't watch the film. They don't tell you in the trailer. And I was like, okay, now you're doing it. You're taking this and that, and you mix them together, and I've never seen that before. As a judge, that's getting in. I want you to watch that, and I want to know what you think. I want people to be undecided about it. I want them to argue, maybe a knife fight, and then I want a lot of drinking and buying shots afterwards, and maybe some out of wedlock babies. But whatever, I want that film to make basically bastard children. That's the bottom line.
Clear. Is there any advice beyond what you just said that you would give creators who are thinking of submitting a film to a motorcycle film festival?
Submit, make, obviously make. That's the first step. It's hard enough to make anything, and don't ever let that not be a thing. Know that making something is special. Everyone gets a trophy, yes, but it's hard to make things and complete them. So congratulations. But if you really want to turn heads and you want a bigger return or a bigger bet, because you're probably going to fail anyway because there's a lot of competition. Let's just put that out there. My advice always is be weird. Get weird with it. Go deep. Find the thing that you really want to do that you think is not going to work. It doesn't matter. And do it. And make it weird. Because if you can get people's attention, even if it doesn't work, but you have a reason for doing it, it's always going to be better. I will always lean towards that person as a confidant, as a friend, as someone that I want to see make more things, because it's easy to replicate things. And I'll tell you another thing. You look at AI, you want to talk about the AI revolution, okay? I've been through the internet revolution, the digital revolution, and now the AI revolution, okay? If you can replicate it, if you can type a prompt into ChatGPT and have it write a script for you, you failed. If that can do that for you, that's not what you want to do. Be surprising. Make it so that AI can't copy you, because that's the only thing that's going to really matter at the end of the day. Be weird. Get out there. Make people confused. Make them angry even. You have to. But definitely surprise people. Surprise and delight. That's it.
Okay, a couple of final thoughts. So, as a filmmaker yourself, what would you encourage other aspiring filmmakers who want to document motorcycle culture to watch other films or directors? Can you make any recommendations?
Yeah, anything but a motorcycle film. That's what I recommend. For me, Orson Welles' F is for Fake. Watch that. It's horrible and weird and bizarre. I mean, Tarantino is amazing. Yes, we've all watched Tarantino, and I think you should copy him. He copied everyone else. It's all about taking your favorite things and putting into a new genre. So don't watch the genre, watch everything else. And the honest to God, and I know this sounds so friggin' stupid, it doesn't matter if you succeed or not. Because there's two ways to go at this. One is you're in it for the money and potentially the fame. And for that, you can copy things and you can be a robot, and you can, there are ways to do that professionally, and that's called advertising. The other way is you do this because you really, really like it, and it gives you excitement and joy, and the process of it is more important than the final product. And that is a bigger gift, and I swear to God this is true, than actually making it. It's great to have money and not worry about it and pay your bills and all that. Absolutely, I get it. But I do long for the days when I worked at a hotel and we would make films in the back office with no money, because there was something about just doing it for pure excitement and joy. It's like drugs. You're not doing it to make money. You're doing drugs to have fun. So if you can do that and make money, you win the friggin' lotto. But if you go after it I got to make this money, I'm going to conform to all this, that's fine too. But don't expect to be fulfilled at all. Go do it because you want to do it. Make it weird, make it yours, make it so that, you can watch it in 20 years and it still brings a smile to your face. I guarantee it's going to be better for you in the end. I promise you.
And finally, and I don't know if you've had experience that applies here, but I'm still going to ask, does filmmaking enhance or diminish the pleasure of a motorcycle ride for you?
I don't think they relate. Filmmaking is a beast. There's so many parts to it. The writing, the casting, the production, the editing. I mean, it's like a life. You live a lifetime with every film. It's like a child. Writing to me is like sex. There's a little foreplay when you put the helmet on. You get on it for about 7 minutes. You get off, you're a little tired and sweaty, and then you want to eat a sandwich. Now, this doesn't say much about my sex life, but you understand what I'm trying to say. It's a different type of aspect of life. Filmmaking is much more you're sowing the seeds, you got to watch them grow, you got to harvest. Like there's a process to it. It's much longer and involved, and there's many rewards along the way and also many pitfalls. But writing to me is like singular, and it's one note, and it's a chorus of notes maybe, but like it's definitely different. So I don't need to have the correlation to make them work in my life. In fact, I think it's better that they don't, because if they were too similar, I think I would never be able to find a new perspective. This way, filmmaking continues to change, and writing is also its own thing. So I could always put that spotlight, that patina on it, and it will always be different and interesting to me. So, yeah, thank God I'm married. You know what I mean? I don't want a sandwich at the end of the day. Whatever. What other questions you got? That was the final question. That's what you leave me with, is a sandwich? Jesus.
Thanks so much for being my guest for this episode, Roberto. Where can listeners view other examples of your filmmaking work?
Thanks, Simon. I mean, first, congrats on this podcast. I think it's so interesting, and I'm glad whoever's listening is tuned in. For me, wherever internet is sold, you can Google Roberto Serrini and find my work. I have a very distinct last name. But robertoserrini.com, you can find my professional work. Travel Class is my travel work. Get Lost Magazine is where I edit and do all my travel journalism. And on OnlyFans, you can find me at footfungus12. No, I'm kidding about that. Unless I'm not. I mean, if I have subscribers, I'll set it up, and we'll do some stuff with motorcycles and feet, which might be a whole new category for us.
Well, you were saying that you need to take this genre and that genre and mix them together, and maybe that's
See what I'm saying?
exactly what you're talking about. Look,
Thank you.
Great. Thanks again. I'm going to stop you there before it gets even weirder. I look forward to seeing what motorcycle films you create in the future. Please take care and ride safe.
Yeah, hope to ride together soon, man. Let's meet in Italy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.